Hi guys, welcome to ScreenTalk, a series that focuses on TV shows, movies, and video games. So today we're talking about The Last of Us, which is a new series based on the video game from 2013. It doesn't cover part 2 or anything like that, it just covers the first game, which is enough to deal with in a season really, because oh my god, this is beautiful. So I've written down some talking points that we're going to go through, and hopefully I've got these in the right order. But right, first of all, we'll start with the cordyceps, which is a fungus. Basically, this is the infection of the world in the world of The Last of Us, which is a fungus that grows inside the brain and controls a human body, and it's all connected. So if you step on a piece of that fungus, infected come running, and everything like that. It's so interesting to see. But one thing that this show does that the game doesn't do is go more in depth about that virus. So there's a talking point at the beginning of the first episode where there's a doctor explaining, or a scientist explaining, that cordyceps is a fungus infection. They don't call it cordyceps, but I'm just saying that to make it easier to understand. That if the world got 1 degree warmer, fungus could actually inhabit the human body and maybe take control and everything like that. And this is what comes to fruition throughout the series, throughout the game, everything like that. In episode 2, they actually go into it, which states that flour and other common ingredients that's used is actually what caused this infection, and that there was 8 people initially infected, and these 8 people, only one of them got caught. And when you cut beneath the skin, it's just pure white fungus strands. That means the fungus has taken control of the body and is what is moving the muscle ligaments, the bones, everything, controlling everything. But yeah, moving on from that, Sarah's death. As we all know, Joel's daughter Sarah dies in the first game, within the first couple of hours of the game, and oh, it's just as heartbreaking in this series, man. Episode 1, she dies, literally episode 1, and it's a shot-for-shot remake of the game where Joel, Tommy, and Sarah are driving through this outbreak day. They get away from everything. A jet falls out the sky, and they have to walk from then on. And Joel and Sarah meet this guard, and this guard pins them down, basically, like pins them in a spot, and says, "Oh, why are you walking?" And Joel's like, "Oh, but we're not infected. She's just hurt." And it's just so horrible to see in live action, because you can just see the emotion on Pedro Pascal's face, and then the guard radios to his thing saying, "Oh yeah, she's hurt her ankle," and you kind of hear what's going on. You don't hear through the radio, but the guard goes, "Wait, what?" And you know that the guard has been told to kill the people. And yeah, Joel kind of realizes this and tries to run, but unfortunately, Sarah catches a bullet. But Tommy does rescue Joel. He kills the guard, but unfortunately, Sarah took a bullet, and this is what sets Joel on the path of Ellie, protecting Ellie, and all the messed up things he does for Ellie, and all the messed up things he does before meeting Ellie. As just before this, there's a time skip. 20 years passed, so from 2003 to 2023, Joel has been a smuggler, a killer, someone who just will not put up with people's shit and will just shoot anyone, kill anyone, trap anyone. We find out that he actually does horrible things, like they set traps for people, innocent people, and kill them for their stuff and stuff like that. And yeah, we kind of find out that that's what has been going on during the time skip. And he's met a woman called Tess, who he's quite fond of, and his partner. But yeah, then they get hired to take Ellie, which is the main point that The Last of Us is about, Joel and Ellie. And yeah, it's just a beautiful thing to see these two characters being brought to life on the screen instead of actually just wiggling a joystick to control them. At the end of the first episode, we kind of find out Ellie's infected, which we all kind of know already if you played the game. But she's immune to it, and the way we find out is basically they're sneaking Ellie out of the QZ, and a guard catches them, and he scans them, and as he's scanning Ellie, she stabs him in the leg, and the guard threatens to kill her, and as the guard is shining the torch in their face, Joel has a flashback to Sarah and just reacts and beats the guard to death with his bare hands because he doesn't want what happened to Sarah to happen to anyone else, and it's just hard to watch. And then we get the clickers. Oh my god, they're so freaky in this show. The clickers are the creepiest things ever. But oh my god, so they're like bats. They can't see, they listen, and it's just a whole quiet sequence, and any breath could kill you because they're that good at hearing. And then we get the infected Tess kiss, which is really, really creepy. Basically, Tess gets bitten, finds out she's infected, sacrifices herself by blowing herself up, but just before she lights the fuel, one of the funguses kiss her. And like the cordyceps like comes out of his mouth, and it's kind of like a French cordyceps kiss, and it's quite freaky indeed. Then we get introduced to Bill and Frank. My favorite part, one of my favorite parts of this season was this Bill and Frank episode. Everyone says, "Oh, it's filler. We didn't need it." Yes, you did. You needed this episode to understand what the whole show is about. Love. Like, you would do anything for your partner, for the person you loved. You would do anything at all. And it kind of shows that, oh my god, Nick Offerman in this show as well was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You get him for one episode, and that episode is enough to love that man. So basically, Bill is a guy who's prepared for the apocalypse his whole life. Got underground bunkers, set up shop, sets up a barrier around his town, and I think 3 years go by, and then he meets Frank, who tries wandering into his little city and falls into one of his traps. Bill offers him food, a clean shower, everything like that, and then tells him to get on his way. But Frank realizes that Bill is actually I don't know how to put this without being insensitive to people, gay, homosexual, whatever you want to call it. And he kind of realizes that Bill is lonely, and they kind of build this love off of nothing really, and it's just nice to see that two people have found themselves and make a life for themselves in this infection. And they kind of do, and it kind of goes through that once they get attacked at one night, and Bill protects Frank by just going out there and just killing all the raiders and everything, and then Frank has to save him. And then it does another time skip, and we find out that Frank is really ill. He's wheelchair bound and everything like that, and it's hard to see. And Bill is now really old and can't provide and can't care for him as much. So Frank makes the decision to take his own life by asking Bill to crush a load of drugs up and slip them in his wine at supper time, at tea time, when they have their final meal, which I gotta say, man, that steak and mash and all that looks banging. But what Bill doesn't tell Frank is that he actually drunk the drugs as well, because he says, my life was meaningless before you, then I found you, and when you leave, my life will be meaningless once again, so what's the point in living? And it's just beautiful. And they both go out together in bed. Basically, Bill carries Frank to bed, and they die happily ever after kind of thing, and it's so emotional and beautiful to see. And it's the heartbeat of the show is this emotional roller coaster that it takes you on. from Bill and Frank right up to Sam and Henry, the two brothers, one being deaf, and it's an amazing thing to see in a show like this, a deaf person going around in an infected world, and basically Henry doing anything he can to protect him, and unfortunately it doesn't work out and stuff like that. And another really emotional beat is Joel witnessing Henry kill Sam to protect Ellie, and then taking Henry's life, took his own life because he couldn't comprehend what he'd just done to his brother, and it's just mental to see it. It does introduce, like I said, the clickers before. This show does introduce not a lot of infected, which I kind of like. It's kind of like the White Walkers in Game of Thrones. And I know I'm jumping from point to point really quickly here, but it's kind of how I express information. So we kind of get the clickers. We get a goddamn bloater, and the goddamn bloater rips this guy's head off, and it's fucking amazing. We get little clicker children. Oh, it's just so good. And emotional at the same time, and it's just one of these factors of the show that just keeps coming back and back and back, and it proves it again in the next episode where Joel finds out Tommy's alive, goes to meet him. Tommy's his brother, if no one knows. I'm talking about this like everyone's played the game. That's how I'm gonna go. So and Joel wants Tommy to take Ellie to wherever he's going. I think it's Boston or something like that, a hospital. And Tommy asks why, and Joel basically just flat out says that he's too old now. He's getting weaker. He's deaf in one ear from all the shooting that he's been doing, and everything like that. And Joel has this heart-to-heart that, like, as they were saying, a dog can sniff an infection, and all Joel could do was stand there because he was too scared, too weak. And this fear overpowers him, and he could just stand there because he's scared of losing Ellie, just like he lost Sarah. And it's an emotional heart-to-heart, and Ellie overhears and kind of gets pissed off. But then, like, by the end of the episode, Joel realizes he's making a mistake and he wants to be there to protect her. And they set off, and it ends up being the other way around by the end of the episode. Ellie protecting Joel. Basically, Joel gets stabbed and is wounded, falls off his horse, and it ends the episode. And we pick up right where it left off, and Ellie's taking care of him. And then, as Ellie's realizing she can't do this on her own, we kind of get a flashback to when Ellie's friend takes her out of the QZ, Fedra QZ, and shows her this mall, and it kind of establishes Ellie's lesbian, homosexual side in this episode, where she loves her best friend, and she doesn't know how to tell her. Basically, you kind of get that feeling that she always wants to, but she doesn't know the right time. And her friend's basically taken her to the mall to show her some really cool things, like they go on this carousel into a photo booth, the iconic photo booth scene from the game. It's near enough beat for beat in the show. And one thing that makes you laugh is Ellie fascinated by escalators. Literally like, what the hell are these? They're electric stairs. What the hell? And it kind of gives this human moment in kind of not a human world. And it's nice to see. Then they play Street Fighter, I think it is, and it is beautiful. Then they get the carousel from the game as well, which is a beautiful scene. They start drinking, they talk about why she's doing this, and they explain that she's leaving and this will be the last thing she ever gets to do with Ellie and stuff like that. And it's another emotional heartbreak for Ellie because someone is leaving her again. Someone that she truly cares about is actually leaving her and not coming back. But as Ellie leaves and storms off, she kind of goes back and states that she's pissed off, but she wants to enjoy this last time with her and tries to convince her to stay. And while they're doing that, an infected bites them both, and this is where Ellie finds out she's actually immune. So basically, they fight off this infected, and as they've killed it, Ellie's friend, I can't remember her name, it's really bad. Ellie's friend notices that Ellie has been bit, and the panic sets on Ellie's face because she doesn't yet know that she's immune. And they kind of go out together as Ellie finds out her friend's also infected, bit on the hand. And they have this emotional kiss, and it's beautiful to see because it's just one of those things where it establishes it in part 2 more than anything of the game, Ellie's love life. But it's nice to see that they're actually taking it beat for beat and bringing that side into it a lot quicker than what they did in the games and stuff like that. I've only played the game till we meet Bill, so the kind of all this was quite a surprise to me and everything like that. But I kind of understood the entire game because I've watched other people play it, and then we get the goddamn cannibal episode. Basically, Joel's still recovering from his wound. Ellie goes out to get food. She hunts a deer. And she meets these 2 people who try to steal a deer. She gets the guns off them. And they offer her medicine in place of the deer. So she tells one of them to go back and get it. And she talks to the other person who says he found God after the infection spread. And she says it's quite a crappy time to find him, and he says, well, it's either the best time or the worst time. Doesn't really matter. Then they bring back the medicine, and Ellie runs off after this because she realizes that they know they're the people that Ellie and Joel are the people that killed their friends from where Joel got stabbed. So Ellie runs off, gives the penicillin to Joel, patches him up a little bit, and then goes out again. She takes a horse as she knows that they're going to come for her. She hears the people who have now come for her and Joel to kill Joel and capture Ellie. And upon this, we realise that, god damn, they've been eating people. They're basically fucking cannibals. It's shown later on, but once they've captured Ellie, Ellie has this talk with him, and you kind of get a little weird vibe from the guy. But Ellie ends up breaking his finger while trapped in the cage, and he smashes her head. And then he goes to get his friend, and they go to chop Ellie up. And Ellie ends up biting the guy and saying, oh, you're infected now, check my arm. And they check, and as they're checking, Ellie picks up a cleaver and stabs one of the guys, which is just brutal. And this episode now focuses on Ellie trying to survive without Joel, and it's really fucking crazy what happens. So Ellie runs away, and I think his name's David, chases her, and they set the place on fire. And as this is happening, Joel wakes up, kills the guys who are now looking for him, and goes to interrogate the rest of them to find out where Ellie is. Once he arrives there, he kind of finds the dead bodies and finds out, shit, they're cannibals. Yep, you see the heads cut off and they're skinning it for meat and everything like that. It's really, really creepy. Then we cut back to Ellie and David. Big fight scene. Ellie's hiding behind the counter, manages to get a knife and stab David, but he manages to beat her to the ground and pin her down, and then we get this really creepy, rapey scene where he says, biting is the part that I like, and he goes to reach for his pants, and Ellie manages to reach for the cleaver and goes mental on the guy's head. You don't see it, but you just watch the anger drain from Ellie's face, and it's amazing to watch because she's had this pent up as he's trying to do stuff to her, and she just lets it all out and just walks out like, fuck, that was crazy. And as she's walking, she panics because someone grabs her, but we then see that the person grabbing her is Joel, and he just comforts her, and she's just broken in his arms. And then we get to the final episode, which starts with Ellie's mum and giving birth to Ellie. So we see that Ellie's mum's running through this field, and she's being chased by infected, and her mum is a firefly, believe it or not. And she ends up stabbing this infected in the neck, and everything goes quiet, and then you hear the baby cry. We don't initially know this is Ellie at first until she kind of confirms it and goes, "Oh yeah, you tell him, little Ellie." But as the baby is crying on the floor, she notices that she's been bit and the umbilical cord is still attached, which means that the cordyceps has spread from her mum into Ellie, and it kind of shows where this immunity is, that she's immune to the cordyceps bite because she has cordyceps in her brain. It just hasn't taken full form, so the infected ignore her rather than going for her, but clickers and stuff will still attack her and rip her apart. There's no stopping that. Then we see that Marlene comes in and sees Anna, and Anna asks Marlene to take Ellie and says that she cut the cord before she was bitten. And Marlene knows it was not true, but that's the truth that they're going to go with. Then we get this scene from Joel and Ellie, and you can tell it's been a long journey, and they're now getting along even better. You can tell Joel cares for Ellie a lot in these scenes, and they're kind of get going, and they go to this building, and Joel goes to say, and Ellie just goes, "Oh, we're going to climb to that skyscraper, look around, and find a path." And Joel goes, "That's not what we're going to say." And she goes, "Oh, what was you going to say?" He goes, "Yeah, I was going to say that." So you kind of see that Ellie and Joel have bonded over the time between the episodes. And then as they're at the top of this skyscraper, we get the infamous giraffe scene, where they both feed a giraffe, and it's beautiful, and it's just this nice little heartwarming moment before the shitstorm happens. So they then make their way to this hospital, and on the way they get attacked, and we find out that it's the fireflies. So Joel wakes up in the hospital without Ellie, saying, "Oh, where's Ellie, where's Ellie?" And Marlene then tells him that he's getting prepped for surgery to find the cure. And she explains that the cordyceps is what they need to cut out of Ellie to see how it reacts with Ellie's DNA and stuff like that. And Joel comes to this realization that cordyceps grows in the brain, and that this is going to kill Ellie, and that Ellie didn't really get a say in it because they knocked her out with drugs before, instead of asking her. So Joel kind of comes to the conclusion of, "I'm going to save Ellie. This is what I'm going to do." And it's kind of if you're not a parent, you will say, "What the hell, this is so wrong." But being a parent myself, I kind of agree with what Joel's done, and I would say I would do it as well for my child. So Joel's getting escorted out the building. The guy pushes him, and Joel fights back and ends up murdering every single firefly in the building, just going through with a little battle rifle thing, I don't know what to call them, and just pumping people full of bullets. And we get this emotional song over it, showing the darkness has come back to Joel, and we get this immunity John Wick scene where he takes out like 40 people on his own, not even a scratch on him, and it's literally shot for shot the game. As he's going through, he's picking up other weapons and mowing people down, and then he gets to the top where Ellie is, and he picks up a pistol, sees that it has a bullet in it still, says to the doctors to unplug Ellie. The doctor says, "I'm not going to do that," picks up a scalpel, and Joel, without hesitating, puts a bullet in his head. Now, in the game, it doesn't go like that. You kind of get to wait, you get to hear the doc out, and then... But in this, Joel just doesn't. He just goes bang, and Doc's dead. And as people who play part 2 know, that doctor's a very important person for part 2. Joel unplugs Ellie from all these drugs and stuff. They bandage her up. and Joel walks out with Ellie. But on his way out, Marlene stops him and says, well, you know, think of what Ellie would have done. We think that Ellie would have made this choice and would have gone through with this. And Joel then says, but that's not for that's not a decision you get to make. And she says, well, you're also making that decision by doing what you just done. And once again, without hesitation, Joel just pops her. And we see this through a flashback, so we kind of think that Joel has left Ellie. We cut to Joel in the car, and then we see Ellie through the rearview mirror. Joel explains that the test didn't work. There's other people who are immune. They've stopped looking for a cure. And then Ellie says, is everyone hurt? And we see Joel shoot Marlene from under Ellie's legs while he's carrying her with the pistol. And then she says, oh, is Marlene okay? And then we get the scene again where Marlene's on the floor and says, you don't have to do this. You don't have to kill me. And Joel literally just says, you'll just come after her. And without hesitation again, just shoots her. Dead. Then we get the scene with Ellie again in the car saying, oh, okay, we get this. And Joel just says a big lie to her just to get her on his side, basically. And then we get, I think it's a little time skip, where they're talking and Ellie comes to the conclusion that she knows something's up in this. And she asks Joel to swear that that is what happened at the hospital, that they couldn't find a cure. Raiders did storm the place, and that was the truth. And Joel says, I swear. And we cut to Ellie, and you can see that she realizes that she's being lied to and she can no longer trust Joel, but she just says, okay. And then it cuts to black, and that is the end of the season. And what a season is, it's an amazing season. It's a breakthrough season for video games because it's the first one I actually loved from being a video game person. And I know I've kind of glossed over a lot of things and I haven't gone into depth about everything. But if you do want an in-depth video, just leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will do another in-depth video about The Last of Us for each episode, maybe. But until then, guys, thank you very much. I'm Stev. This is Screen Talk. My new series where we talk about, like I said at the beginning, TV shows, movies, and video games. And if you want to see more of these, please do let me know in the comments. Sometimes I may have a guest on with me talking about a show we both like, or a game we both like, or a movie we both like. I think the next one I'm moving on to is The Flash. I have recently been rewatching The Flash. I'm back on season 6 now, actually, of 9 seasons. And I only started it this week, which is crazy. But, so yes, I will do a screen talk for Flash Season 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But they will not be as long as this. They'll probably be 10 minutes. Because I kind of can break Flash down a lot quicker and stuff like that. But this all kind of combusts because it's fresh in my brain. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you and goodbye.